welcome to episode 210 of the CraftHouseMagic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 19th of May. So welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today we have some knitting and we have a special guest, so watch out for that. I have some sewing and I have a Gadget stroke blast from the past, so it's the same thing to show you for that section. I have some information on my shop update, and then we have a little appearance from little Jensen at the end of the podcast. So we have a couple of Makalongs going on in the Ravelry group and on Instagram, and the details of those are in the description bar down below. But we have the Craft 20 a day Makalong, which is basically working on something 20 minutes or so a day and progressing on those larger projects. And the CraftHouseMagic Spring Shawl Along 2022 is any shawl or cowl or wrap or anything that's sort of similar to a shawl, and you can come and join in on the Ravelry group or on Instagram, like I said, using the hashtags that are in the description bar down below. So let's get on with the knitting, shall we? So I've got one thing to show you and then we'll have a special guest, so watch out for that. So first of all, I've been working on my Slithering Great Ambition mittens, and you can see that there's a little bit of a colour difference. So I bought some Jameson & Smith that I'd had in my stash ages, and which I used for the first one, which was this one. And then I ordered the same colour when it is slightly different. Of course, obviously it's not the same batch, so you can't expect it to be exactly the same, and it was quite a while in between the two purchases, so I can only blame myself. So I have done the main part of the mitten on the second one, which is this one here. So this one's been blocked and this one hasn't, so it looks a little bit neater, this one here. It's got a big snake in the shape of an S on the centre of the mitten, and actually they're mirror image. So this is the left hand mitten, this is the right hand mitten, so that they sort of go towards each other. I think that's actually a better look, because if they're both in the shape of an S on both sides, I don't think it would look right. But there we go. We've got one going one way and one going the other. Like I said, this one has been blocked, so it looks quite a lot neater and flatter. But if I do sort of stretch this out just slightly, it's exactly the same size. And I've just started the thumb on the second mitten. And you can see what it's going to look like. It's got the S on it as well, and it's got this really nice diamond pattern on the back of the mitten, and same, both exactly the same on the inside, but obviously the thumb's in a different place just because one's for the left and one's for the right hand. So I'm using these higher flyer trio needles, and you basically have one on the front of the work, one on the back of the work, and then another needle that's sort of your working needle, and it's a sort of cross between DPNs and circular needles, and I really like them for doing colourwork mittens like this, because I find that on the edges of my work, when I'm doing it using magic loop, my edge stitches get really tight with it being colourwork, so I like to use these needles. These particular ones are the steel higher flyer trio needles, and these are the 2.5mm. So the 2.5 is actually a little bit bigger than the standard size that are supposed to be used for the mittens. The mitten calls for a 2.25mm needle, but I know I knit colourwork quite tightly, so I went for a 2.5mm needle. And I know that for about 60 stitches, that with a 2.5mm needle is a perfect gauge to fit my hand, and also because these are for Adam and then Adam's hand as well. Our hands are very similar size, which is very handy because I can just try them on myself. I love these mittens because they've got a really cute little ribbed cuff on the wrist. I just love how they look. So I'll show you the one that's finished. I just like how it sort of grips into your wrist there, but also being the sort of traditional shaped mitten. So the yarn that I use for these mittens is a Jameson & Smith, and I will put the colourway numbers in the description bar down below. So I am back with a special guest, Liz, who's going to show us what she's been knitting.
Hello.
And Liz knits loads of the samples for me, don't you, Liz?
I do.
And I thought I'd ask her a couple of questions about her sort of knitting experience on the podcast, so that you can sort of find out a bit more about Liz. So Liz is Adam's mum. So you're my mother-in-law, aren't you?
I certainly am.
And Liz has been knitting for quite a long time, but tell us about when you first started knitting.
I started knitting when I was about 8. My mum taught me how to knit and went on from there, really. I knitted a lot of clothes for Adam and his sister Helen, and I just really enjoy it.
I like the tiny little jumpers you used to knit in the Aran
Yeah.
ones. I'll see if I can find a picture of Adam
Yeah.
with one of the Aran jumpers that Liz knitted
Yeah.
and pop it on the screen so you can
Yeah.
see it.
Jensen can have it later.
Yeah. Is there anything else I can ask you?
All
I
the
can
complicated patterns you give me to get. And I have to keep asking you what to do.
You
how
know
to
what
do
to
them.
do.
No.
I think you know what to do on all of them. You just need like confirmation.
Yes,
That's what it
yeah.
is.
I'm used to following a pattern which says everything, not different sizes, which go up to about small to the biggest man, you know, but
yeah. I think it's quite good now. They're a lot more inclusive these
Yeah.
days. Quite often I used to find that I couldn't find one to fit me.
No.
Anyway, I'm gone on a different subject now. But Liz has been working on the Summer Sorrel by Woollen Pine, and she's going to show you what she's been working on.
Oh. If I don't drop the neat stitches, there we are.
So this is what she's started
I don't know how to
with
show
so
it, really.
far. So this is the neck at the top, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a bit awkward to show because it's
Yeah.
knitted from the top down, from like an I-cord neck, which you hadn't done before, had you?
No, not cast on.
I've not actually. I don't think I've knitted one with an I-cord neck. I'm
No.
not sure.
It's very pretty.
Yeah, I like the effect of how it's like a nice neat edge.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what it's like when it's actually on, whether it's quite a gaping neck or whether it's quite tight. It does look quite a wide neck, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll have to see how it comes out. And there we are, a little bit of a close-up. You can see those detailed stitches now. Really pretty in those corals. Lovely. So you've been, first of all, you were knitting with this yarn. So this is the first yarn that Liz knitted with, just at the top here. And this one is a stranded Dyeworks in the legless flamingo colourway, and it's a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And that's a really lovely mix of corals, and then there's some natural colour of the yarn coming through there as well. And there's little splashes of sort of brighter colours. I believe that she did do a flamingo colourway which had little black bits in as well, which was obviously the legs. And the next colourway you're actually using now.
That was blended in once.
Yeah, that's really nice. There's instructions in the pattern, isn't there? Of how to blend it in, which is really handy because sometimes you might not be sure of when to start the next yarn in order to only use sort of 3 colours, because we've got 3 skeins here. So this one is a Ducky Darlings yarn, and I actually bought this in mind to go with this when I got this in my stash, and I picked this up from a yarn show from Hayley from Ducky Darlings, and I think that blends in really nicely.
It does, yeah. Lovely.
So you've got like a, I don't know what you'd call this sort of pattern. Did it say what it was called?
I don't know.
This sort of...
I can't remember.
So there's an interesting stitch detail that runs all the way around the yoke here. But have you got past there now, or are you still on it? You've still got a bit.
2 more stitches for the yoke is finished. Yeah, and then that goes plain.
Yeah.
And you have to turn it inside out to do it knitting instead of purl.
Oh, that'll be nice. That'll be a bit easier.
Yeah,
I always think purl's more fiddly.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah.
I find that quite a few people say they prefer doing purl to knit though, which is a bit
you can
weird.
watch telly and knit.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Much easier.
Yeah.
And then we've got a third colour to go in. And this is a Hedgerow yarns that I had in my stash a while ago. And I just thought that that would blend in nicely so that the 3 colours together are like that. And I thought, actually, it would be nicer to have the darker colour around the middle so that it's a bit more flattering with the brighter colours closer to your face.
Yeah, very nice.
So, I'm just quickly going to go through what sizes Liz is knitting. So she's knitting it for me.
Yes.
We should get some more patterns for you, Liz.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I get too hot with jumps.
It's very warm this time of year.
Yeah.
So we've chosen the 44-inch bust to fit me to knit the neck down, and then because I've got quite narrow shoulders and a bigger bust, I've then getting Liz to increase once she's done joined them under the arms to a 51-inch bust. But I'm basically sticking to the instructions that said in the pattern. Just when she's joined under the arm, then going to do a couple of increase rows just to give enough room for the bust area, because I do find that because I've got quite narrow shoulders, if I knit the size that's for my bust, I end up with it really, really loose up here. So it's better to do smaller size up here and then increase for the bust area. You could do some short rows around the bust to make like a wedge as well. That's another alternative, but I thought I'd give it a go, just increasing at the bust just so that it's got plenty of room, and then it'd be quite loose around the bust as well, being a 51 inch, as I've given it a couple of inches positive ease there. So I've just given Liz the instructions to fit me.
Yeah.
We've been really naughty there, haven't we? We've not done a gauge swatch.
No, well, that's fine.
I normally do gauge swatches, but I found that when Liz has done them before, they've been pretty much the same as the actual gauge that's called for in the pattern, so I thought we'd just risk it.
Too true.
Be daring. If it's a bit tight, it'll be a nice slim fit, wouldn't it? So what else would you say about the pattern? Have you got any thoughts about there's some links in there, isn't there, to do with some of the tutorial?
Yes, that's very good, very clear. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Because there was some unusual techniques in there, wasn't there, with the I-cord neck that you've not done before. No. But it does help, I think, with the instructions being on video as well. Yeah. Because I think sometimes when you read something, you think, is that right?
I prefer to see somebody show me how to do it, you know, rather than read. I'm a bit slow. It's my age.
You're not old. Do you find that there's a difference between some of the, you know, the Aran jumpers that you knitted for Adam when he was a boy?
Definitely.
Between the way it's written these days? Do you find it easier or harder?
Well, once you get to know what you're doing, that's easier. But obviously, my mind isn't set to do that. I'm getting better though, so hopefully. Yeah, that'd be fine. I
definitely think though that you've got a lot more sort of daring with what you'll pick up, because to start with you were like, oh, I can't knit that, and then I give you a few Stephen Wests, and you're away.
Yeah, well, that was socks to start with. I thought, oh,
you hate socks, don't you?
Hateful double-pointed needles. Oh. They fall out, and I don't like them now. No,
they are a bit fiddly. We'll have to get you on magic loop doing them. Haven't you done magic loop before?
I have now.
You still don't like socks, though, do you?
No.
No. So thanks to Liz for appearing on the podcast, and I can't wait to see how the summer sorrel comes out. Loving those colours. So next is my sewing section, and I have been doing a little bit of work on the hexagon box that I'd started. So last time I was showing you that I'd done the embroidery around the hexagons that I've appliqued on, and also these little kisses, and I've done those on every other side of the box, and this time I've joined them all together and added the base on as well. So that is the outside of the box done, and I've got to do the lining now. You can see all the messy little stitches where I did the embroidery on those squares. And now I've got to do the lining, and I'm thinking I should do a lid for this actually, because I think that'll be really nice. And the little case that I've got there fits nicely inside this, so that'll be a nice place to store all my English paper piecing things together. I really love this pattern. It is a pattern by Emma Jones from Vintage Sewing Box, and it's just called the Hexagon Box, and I'll leave some links to it below in the description bar. This has got a violin that's like a foam violin, which is really lovely to keep the sides of the box nice and sturdy, and I think when I've lined it as well, that'll give it a little bit more sturdiness, and I can't wait to get that lining finished so that I can actually start using it. So the next section I've got is Gadget, but it's also Gadget / Blast from the Past, because some of these things are not only gadgets but are some things that I've made in the past as well. So I thought I'd talk about pin cushions, and I've got a few little pin cushions that I've made over the years, and they don't match, but I still keep them around in my craft room just because they're really, really handy. What I should do really is make loads that all match, and then it'll be coordinated with my craft room a bit better. But first of all, I've got one, it's actually the same, I've got one that's a pattern by the same lady who did the hexagon box. That's Emma Jones from the Vintage Sewing Box, and she had a little free pattern to do these tiny little hexagon pin cushion, and I love this. It's brilliant for just parking your needle as you're working. I've got the butterfly upside down. lovely for parking your needle as you're working, so it's a really little handy thing to have, and I normally keep it in my little case for English paper piecing. So that's a really useful cushion. And I've got several pin cushions that are sort of like this. This is a cathedral window that I've actually made up into a pin cushion with some batik fabric. And I've got all my silk pins in there, so they're the ones with the red heads. And I just love the blues of this fabric, so I wanted to make it into something that I'll use in my craft room all the time. And I've got some of those ground nuts in this one to keep the pins nice and sharp. So that's my second one I've got to show you. And the third one wasn't made by me, but it was a lovely gift by my lovely friend Eva from the Coco and Flora podcast. And I always use this lovely pin cushion to park my threaded needles where I'm hand sewing in my craft room. So this is the one I use right next to my sewing machine as well. It's got some beautiful pins that are actually spools of thread, and then one of those little pin cushions as well. So they're beautifully made. I think that Eva's made these little pins out of polymer clay as well, which is amazing, and beautifully stitched on the little leaf there. And it's a gorgeous pear shape and lovely because it's blue and it goes with my craft room. I think Eva has got some things in her Etsy shop still. I will leave a link to her Etsy shop. I don't know whether she's got any of these in her shop at the moment, but she may well make you one if you ask her to. But they are absolutely stunning, beautifully made. So now it's the shop update section. So this Friday, the 20th of May at 7 PM GMT, the Yarn Club for June will be available on my website. So that's a single listing for June's Yarn Clubs. It will be the mixtape minis and the power ballads as well. That's the sock sets. Power ballads are obviously inspired by the power ballad songs over the decades, and mixtape minis are all mixture of song inspirations there, so you never know what's going to be on that mixtape for that particular month. So they'll be available from the 20th of May to the 5th of June, and they'll be shipped on the 10th of June. I will be listing each month as we go, so you can purchase them month by month, but every other month I'll do a listing for 2 months. So if you want to save on postage, they're sort of a combined listing, and they'll be shipped the date of the second month that's listed in that listing, if that makes sense. If you bought July and August, it will be shipped on the date that the August clubs are ready to ship. I'm also excited to introduce the summer holiday project bag and sock set. And I'll pop some artwork here that I've created in the colours that I've designed for this sock set and bag, and it'll sort of give you an indication of what the theme is. Obviously it's summer holidays. I will call the yarn a particular song that inspired me, that reminds me of summer. I'll leave that as a surprise, and obviously the yarn and the bag will be a surprise, but you'll get a couple of little extras in there like stitch mark and a lavender sachet. So those will be available on the 20th of May until the 5th of June, like the June Yarn Clubs as well. But the shipping date for the summer holidays set will be the 30th of June. I may well actually ship these slightly earlier, but my target date is the 30th of June, so I've got plenty of time to get those shipped out. So last of all, I've got Jensen's little spot on the podcast, so over to you, Jensen. Good morning, Jensen. Did you sleep well? Oh, yes. Good morning. Are you pulling those legs up? So Jensen is going to be showing us the mobile I made, which is just above him. I think Daddy's going to put it on for me. So he really likes looking at his mobile when he's in bed. Don't you, Jensen? Did you sleep well? Ah, it looks like you did. Legs up. And those are the little creatures I made to go on the mobile. little bird, a rabbit, a hedgehog who's coming around now. You can see the back of him. There's the hedgehog and the fox and the butterfly in the middle. And you can see that there's little leaves that I've done for each of the stems. And I just bought the mechanism to put it onto so that it has music as well. Isn't that right, Jensen? You're quiet this morning. Thank you very much, Jensen. Thank you very much, Jensen, for showing us your little mobile. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!